me on another episode of Powerhouse U. And if you look to this way, right over there, you'll see Dominique Maddox from Dallas, Texas. Can you high five me through the camera real fast, Dominique? I got your name right.
Right.
How are you?
I'm doing unbelievable. Thanks for
Unbel-
having me on your show.
oh, you're welcome. No problem. I am doing unbelievably well today, just like you. Unbelievably. All right. So, without all jokes aside, I'm accompanied here with Dominic Maddox of Eats Broker. He is out of Dallas, Texas, and he is a restaurant broker. And I'm going to let him give a quick introduction, and then we're going to go straight into the Q&A section. So, let him know who you are.
I'm Dominique Maddox, the restaurant broker, the founder of Eats Restaurant Brokers. After working with one of the nation's largest restaurant brokerage firms for 7 years, I just thought it was time to start my own brokerage and bring a different flavor to the restaurant brokerage industry. So I started my brokerage in October of 2019. I'm 10 years in the business and super excited.
Yeah, 10 years, a different flavor. Play on words there. Yes, no.
It is a little bit.
All right. So I've actually been connected with Dominique for years through Instagram. I have actually watched him grow, watched him transition because you actually started your career in what state?
Georgia.
In Georgia. And from Georgia, I saw you with a cowboy hat on one day and I was like, hold on, what's going on here,
Exactly.
sir?
I'm adapting to the culture. It's the nation of cowboys, the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Clearly. When in Russia, right? Or is it wait,
Exactly.
we're not going to use that.
But it's
Sorry.
not a Dallas Cowboys hat. I'm
It's
still
it's
Atlanta. I'm still Atlanta Falcons fan, but I'm talking about the cowboy hat. You
Uh,
know what I'm saying? You know what
oh,
I'm
see
saying?
that one right
That one.
there.
That
Oh, you
that
might as well wear that on the car. Looking real
that
fresh
that, that cowboy
today.
hat.
All right. So, as stated earlier, so you decided to be a restaurant broker. So let us know because I know a lot of people don't know that I should stop saying that. I probably say that every call. But the restaurant broker it's a very unique niche market that you're capturing right now and then that you're giving your attention to. So feel free to give a little bit of information on what a restaurant broker is and why you decided to become a restaurant broker.
Well, most people have heard the term business broker, someone that sells businesses. Well, a restaurant broker is a business broker that only specializes in selling restaurants. So I'm very specialized. I feel like more of like a black ninja. Um, and the reason that I chose restaurants really is the opportunity found me. In 2010, I was looking at I was actually a residential agent from 2008 to 2010. I got my real estate license in 2008 because I wanted to be established. The market was really bad then. So I wanted to be established once it bounced back. So I did residential from 2008 to 2010. I knew I didn't like it. I knew I wanted to go into commercial real estate. I just didn't know how to get into commercial real estate. So I was studying, I was looking at getting into different programs, scholarships, diversity scholarships to some of these commercial real estate classes and courses. And I looked up and I received an email. And I received this email after praying and praying that, hey, this opportunity would come that I would be able to get in commercial real estate. And the email said, hey, have you ever wanted to become a intermediary? I'm like, intermediary, but selling restaurants, like, sure, I would love to, but I've never thought about selling restaurants. And I went to the interview with this large brokerage firm. And I can remember sitting there and she asked me, she was like, hey, do you have enough money to survive 6 months without getting a check? And at the time I'm broke. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I have enough in my account. She was like, all right, I just want you to know because it could take 6 to 8 months before you get your first check. But it was an opportunity to get in commercial real estate. I'm like, I'm going to bet on myself, even though they said 6 months. This is my way to get in commercial real estate. So after that interview, I got into the business September of 2010. And I'm thankful. It's the best decision that I ever made in my life. And I've really found my purpose is to really educate the world about being a restaurant broker, not even the world, people that look like me, that come from backgrounds like me, that have never even heard about the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then which is good. So that you kind of ended the story a little bit. You said that happened in September, right? When she asked you if you could survive. So how long
Oh
did
yeah,
it
yeah,
take
oh yeah,
you?
yeah, in 2010. But you know, the cap to that story is that I actually got my first check in 60 days. Because what I did was I created a spreadsheet of all the restaurants in every zip code. And every time I was in that zip code, I kept these packets that had, it was a brochure that said, hey, have you ever thought about selling your restaurant? And I would put it, and I would go into these restaurants, door knocking, you know, I go and say, hey, can I speak with the manager or the owner? Can I speak with the owner, not the manager? And if the owner wasn't there, I would leave my envelope. And sometimes they would call me and say, yeah, hey, I'm actually thinking about selling my restaurant. So I did this for about a good 2-3 weeks, and I finally got a hit. This gentleman owned a bar and he wanted to retire. And I walked in, he happened to be sitting at the bar, and I talked with him and I said, hey, I just got into the business. But if you want to sell your restaurant, I'm the guy. I can sell your restaurant. I specialize in selling restaurants. He gave me the opportunity. I saw his location, and 60 days later, I got my first commission check.
Well, congratulations to that. High five again through the camera.
Thank you, thank you.
Booyah.
But
All right.
everyone's not going to make that sacrifice like I did of creating a spreadsheet, walking into these restaurants, being uncomfortable, saying, "Hey, can I speak with the owner?" Talking with the owner right there, saying, "Hey, if you're looking at it," my pitch was, if you're looking at expanding, contact me. But when you open the envelope, you talk about selling. But I said expanding just in case there was any of the employees there and they heard us talking. See,
That makes
I just dropped a nugget
that
for people who like the cold call.
look, I'm about to use that one.
Yeah.
For real. So okay, so that's how you made your introduction into the restaurant broker. So you went from residential, thinking you were going to get into commercial, and then you
Correct.
kind of did, but you got in it as a restaurant broker. So
Correct.
we also know that there's other opportunities to sell different type of asset classes, asset types such as dry cleaners, gas stations, etc., etc. What made you stick to restaurants and say this is what it's going to be for me, and I'm gonna just go full throttle on this?
Well, it's all about branding. I'm Dominique, the restaurant broker. If I call someone and say Dominique, the restaurant broker, they automatically know who I'm talking about. Sometimes I'll call someone and say Dominique, they say who? I say Dominique, the restaurant broker. But it's about branding and it's about specializing. If you had something wrong with your head, you would go to a doctor that specializes in your head. You would not go
Mm-hmm.
to a heart surgeon. Just because they work on the body doesn't mean they specialize in what you need. And
Mm-hmm.
also, every day I'm talking to different restaurant owners. A lot of the times, once I look at their financials, I have a better understanding of their restaurant than they do because I know what the labor cost should be, what the food cost should be. If someone sends some financials over to me and they look shaky, or I'm like, I'm going to call them out because I know after 10 years of experience, something doesn't look right on there because I specialize in the industry. There's some people that sell restaurants, but they'll sell a gas station, a dry cleaners. Well, how do you really specialize? What do you specialize in?
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people if you're going to be in commercial real estate, it's definitely an industry that you want to specialize in something. Get very good at something. It's repetitive, doing the same thing over and over and over. And sometimes I'm so good now, I look at some of these P&Ls and I know what the valuation is very quickly, very quickly.
And that comes with the time and skin in the game to where you could just like when you underwrite or look at listings, you're just like no, 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 there it is, let me evaluate this one. And it sounds like too, are you it sounds like you're pretty much picky too when it comes to picking your listings and the people that you represent. It doesn't sound like you're going to take anything.
Well, that is correct. And the reason you have to be, because I provide honest restaurant valuations. I'm not just providing a valuation to make them satisfied or to get the listing on my website.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather not get the listing and provide them an honest restaurant valuation. And the second reason is a lot of restaurant sellers think their restaurant is worth way more than it is. They hear about some of these restaurants that get well, not even a restaurant, they hear about a business that may get a 5 times multiple, 6 times multiple. And they're like, oh, my restaurant should get that. No, the restaurant industry is the riskiest business. It gets the lowest multiples. It's the hardest to sell a restaurant. This is a fact. Only 30 to 40% of restaurants that listed for sale will actually sell to a new buyer. That means you have about a 60 to 70% failure rate, even when you list it on the market. But that's why you want to be with a restaurant broker, because I'm going to package it right. I'm going to be able to tell the story correctly. And I'm going to be able to work with the buyer to walk them through the process of why they should sell, why they should actually buy a restaurant in today's market.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things is selling the restaurant, selling the story of the restaurant. Always talk to people, and you're going to hear me say that over and over, the restaurant story. Why would someone buy your restaurant? You got to have someone that can be able to tell your story as well as you do, or even better. And as a restaurant broker, I tell the restaurant story better than a lot of my owners can.
Yeah, so if a person is to wanted to maximize how much they get for their restaurant, what would you tell them to put in order today if they were preparing to sell?
I would say as soon as you are getting into the restaurant industry, plan your exit. I'm going to say that again. As soon as you're getting in, plan the exit on your way out. What I tell people is contact a restaurant broker a year or two before you're even looking at selling. Definitely, if you have a really good concept, contact them and say, hey, give me a valuation. What can I do? Because a lot of my jobs is educating people and providing consulting to them, because
Mm-hmm.
there's tricks that you want to do of, yes, you want your books to be really clean 2 years before you sell so you can get the highest price point. A lot of people think that, hey, I'm going to get all these tax write-offs and I'm going to beat up my taxes, but you want the highest valuation when you're ready to exit, but you haven't even planned the exit correctly. So it's the people that plan correctly get the highest valuation. The people that don't plan correctly or they rush decide the sale, then they're going to get a lower valuation.
So preparation is key, and not just a week prior, just waking up and saying, I just don't want to do this anymore. You got to plan for it.
That's the best way, because when you're looking, most people, when you're contacting your CPA, you want your CPA or your accounting to save you money
Mm-hmm.
on your taxes. But if you're looking at selling in a year or two, you need to pay the IRS a little money up front so you can get a higher valuation, because your tax returns are really clean and you're showing a really good profit. The restaurants that are actually selling are the ones that are showing a profitability.
Yeah, and those are the ones that are selling at a higher value versus just selling at a asset price versus, just selling off whatever the equipment, right?
Exactly. As an asset sale, you're getting pennies on the dollar. It's really about 20 cents on the dollar.
Which nobody wants that. You want all your money because too, I mean, I don't know if you're the right person to ask this because when somebody owns a restaurant for 30 years and they close their doors, it's the what's next for me because that was their bread and butter and that was their income. Do you know what usually I know everybody has their own story, but do you know what usually happens after a person sells their restaurant and they're not prepared?
Well, if they're not prepared, that's something that really on during the process of selling it, they find out what they're going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And I deal with a lot of people that aren't prepared. They're scared. It's that asset that they've had all the years. It's like having a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can't let my child go. Like this is all I know. This is what people know me as, having this asset. So yeah, some people are like they don't know what they're going to do. I deal with a lot of baby boomers. Baby boomers are the ones that are really selling their restaurants in today's market. And a lot of them are looking at retiring or moving closer to family, because the biggest thing is the health, the mental and physical health that it requires to operate a restaurant, the time, effort, the stress. A lot of people want to get out of the business because of that. But on the same token, you got a younger generation that's coming in that they're saying, okay, I want this space. I have energy. I have an idea of how to operate this restaurant. And that's what I'm selling to now. Or the people that came from corporate America that said, hey, I want to have ownership of my life. I want to have a restaurant. If it's an independent restaurant or a franchise, I want to have ownership. I no longer want to work in corporate America. I have this 401k that I can liquidate, or I have this money now that I want to go into restaurant ownership.
Hmm. And then I'm going to say, just assuming too, that when you decide to drop everything and go into the restaurant business, you have to prepare and you have to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, as is any business, because I've seen specifically one restaurant space I've seen change name and change hands about 5 times in 5 years. And you're like, what's going on here? And I would say too, it could be location, but it could also be the person who took that location over just was not prepared. And I remember talking to one person who was telling me what business he was in and decided to run this restaurant. And I was just so happy for him. Closed 12 months later. Lack of preparation, lack of really knowing and understanding what you're getting yourself into, not doing the research behind it before actually purchasing a restaurant. And so from your standpoint, what are some of the most common mistakes you see that could lead to business failure within, maybe let's just say, the first 5 years, to where they're like, I just bought this, I thought it was a good idea, I put all of my money into it, and I have to sell it and walk away.
My biggest thing that I see is going broke on the build out. Everyone wants to get all this fancy restaurant, all this new equipment, and they go broke on the build out. They spend so much money on the build out if they just say a restaurant spend 300,000 on the build out and they want to go out of business out of the first year, they're going to contact me and say, Dominique, hey, I have a restaurant. I spent 300,000 on the build out. All I want is my money back. And I kind of laugh like, it doesn't work that way. If you spend 300,000 on the build out, you've had it for a year, I may list it for 100,000 and see what it gets. And that's just the cold hard facts of it, because a lot of that build out the landlord owns. People don't think about that. The people that are really interested, they go into these spaces that have never been a restaurant and they build it out, grease trap, hood system, refrigeration, all
I
this.
went into a tea shop one time that had a chandelier, and I'm like, you make this much selling tea?
No, no, no. And that's the one of the biggest thing is the build out cost. I would say get a second generation restaurant, something that's already been a restaurant if you want to open up your new concept, or purchase an asset sale, a restaurant that's not profitable, but you like the location, you notice they're fully equipped. Buy a location like that, because all you have to do is change out the paint, do a couple of different changes, but don't go into these spaces that are not restaurant spaces and you're converting them to a restaurant space and spending all that money on the build out. You see that on a lot of franchises.
Yeah, because you expect to see a line out the door, but the line out the door is because they had the money for their marketing. They had, the word of mouth. They had the what's the word that I'm looking for, when people know you, so they're coming to you. They have the brand representation. They have all
Right,
that. A
right.
lot of times when you take over a restaurant, I'll let you finish, but a lot of times when you take over a restaurant, you're new, you're beginning, you don't have that.
That's correct. That's correct. And then also the second thing is, okay, so I said build out costs. The second important thing is the rent. Think about that, the rent and the lease. Because when you get a lease, you're going to sign up that you're the lease guarantor. What that means is that they could come after you if you don't live up to the lease terms. Just say that you sign a 5-year lease. After 2 years, you'd be like, I don't want to be in the restaurant industry. You still got 3 years left on that lease. Okay, so I need you to find me someone to replace you, or I need you to keep paying out of your pocket with that lease. And that's what I talk to a lot of people about. Definitely people that they get tired of being in the restaurant industry after a year or two and they got 3 years left on the lease. I'm like, hey, you may not get what you want up front, but the money that you're going to save on your lease, you got to think about that. Just, so, and also your lease amount should be no more than 10% of your sales. I always talk to people about that want to open up a new restaurant, or they're looking at buying a restaurant, is the sales amount, how much is it compared to the rent amount? And if it's over 10%, then you're in the danger zone. You really want that rent amount to be about 6 to 8% of your total gross sales.
So when you do that, my question to you is, let's just say that someone started a mom and pop delivery food service. Are you going based off of the income you get from that delivery food service, and say that my goal is to just do 10% of this, and this is how much I could afford to pay in rent?
Yeah, when I'm consulting people, because I got people that contact me when they're ready to exit or when they're ready to get into the business,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing like their business plan, writing it out. And I would definitely say that that's the thing that I really spend the most time on is that rent amount, because a lot of people just say, I want a great location, I want this, I want that. But how much are your gross sales going to be? That's the big thing. How much is your restaurant going to make? If your restaurant's going to make 500,000, well, your rent should be based off something that's going to make 500,000. I'm doing quick math. What's that? 4,000, a little bit over, close to five. It's going to be under 5,000 a month if they do 500,000 in gross sales.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? If it's less than 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an education aspect. These are just things as a restaurant broker, as an experienced restaurant broker, that I talk to people about, things to look out for. It's the build out costs, and it's also the rent percentage.
And out of curiosity, have you had someone decide to sell their restaurant? The landlord says that they will not grant the new purchaser 100% ownership, or in order to lease the restaurant to them, the current owner has to guarantee the lease. Have you had that happen and then the old owner has to then run the restaurant again because the new owner failed?
Well, I personally never had that happen, but it could happen. A lot of times what I'm trying to do is, if I can't get my seller off, because when a buyer buys a restaurant, they're doing a lease assignment, meaning they're taking over the rights that my client, the seller, had.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once they took over the rights, they turn over to the guarantor. But also I try to get my client off the lease or have a burn off time, meaning, hey, 6 to 12 months, this new buyer that we bring in, if they make on time payments, then my client should be off after 6 to 12 months. But yeah, you do legally have that. If they kept my client on the lease and that person went out of business after 1 year and there's still 2 years left on that lease, yes, they could come back after the seller. And
Yeah.
that's what it's that lease, it's the lease.
Yeah, so we talked about a couple things here, and then to try to sum it up real fast and backtracking, you said that the number one thing to look for is, you said that a mistake that they make is paying too much on the build out,
Correct.
and going over and beyond on that.
Correct.
Your rent should only be 10% of your income
And
on the
that's
business.
high. That's high. You want it at 6 to 8%.
6 to 8
Percent of your gross sales.
of the gross sales.
That's
Mhm.
correct.
And the lease. Would you say those are the three most important things for the new purchaser of the restaurant?
Exactly. Because when you're talking about your lease, because you could do, most landlords that you could do a 3, a 5 year, and I would say if you have a new concept, do a short term, because you don't know if your concept's going to work or not.
Mhm.
But if you already have a restaurant, or if you're about to buy a restaurant, really review that lease so you can make sure you know what you're signing up for.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because as a restaurant broker, I review the lease for my clients, so I know how much the assignment fee is if we bring someone else in, what they require from that new person, all the terms on the lease. You actually need to read that.
Okay. You definitely do, as you should. It's a contract and you're signing your name there. So that sums that up. I appreciate you for it. Is there anything that you wanted to add to the end of the call?
Well, I think the opportunity of being a restaurant broker, it found me, but I also want to make sure that I think it's important that people never know what's possible until they see someone that represents them or looks like them. And I hope I inspire someone that looks like myself or that comes from a similar background where I came from nothing, that, hey, being a restaurant broker, specializing in selling restaurants, or just being a business broker. I went to Morehouse College and I had never heard about being a business broker. You have people that specialize in selling businesses. This is a different aspect of commercial real estate. We hear commercial real estate, we just assume it's real estate. Well, I'm in commercial real estate / business brokerage, and I don't sell a lot of real estate. I sell businesses. So I think just knowing that that's a career choice is really key for a lot of people, because most states, you don't even need a real estate license to sell businesses in that state. There's only 18 states actually 19 states that require a real estate license for you to sell businesses in the state. And that's what a lot of people don't know. I sell in different states. Yes, I'm living in Texas, but I sell in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, mainly the Southeast and up to the North. And that's very unique when it comes to business brokerage. And lastly is you can get referral fees from the bank. Meaning if I have a client that I send to a bank and that client has $1 million, loan from that bank, the bank will give me 1% back as a referral fee for, hey, Dominic,
Just
thank
pointing
you.
them in that direction, huh?
Yes, yes, you can't do that in residential. The rules are different in commercial real estate. The
They
rules
are.
are different in business brokerage.
Yeah. So my question to you personally is what is your vision for yourself in like the next 5 to 10 years? And talking that'd be a future question, but talking about now, what's your ideal client? Who are the people that you enjoy working with the most? So you could answer that and then you could tell me where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10.
Well, my ideal client is someone that owns a restaurant that's ready to exit and they have good books and records. Or if they don't have good books and records, they just understand that they're not going to get the highest valuation. People that may be selling a restaurant that's not making money, just know you may not come out profitable. You may just come out taking a loss, but let's cut down on your losses and get rid of that restaurant for you. So I would say anyone that's looking at selling a restaurant is a great person for me to talk to. And then also, where am I looking at going? Eventually, I want to get into mergers and acquisitions, M&A, meaning that I want to work on deals that, have 6 to 10 restaurants at a time and bring someone under me and train them to do kind of what I'm doing of deals right now, under 2 million. So that's the eventual goal. And then also, I just want to bring more people to my brokerage and expose them to the industry, because that's one of the biggest flaws to this industry is there's very few players in the industry and they don't want to let you in. That's the thing. There's very few players that specialize in these
That's
industries
factual.
and they don't want to let you in. I'm in there, baby. Like I ain't going nowhere.
Intimidating. Yes.
So, that's kind of the next step. But I do want to be able to expose people to this industry as I grow as a brokerage. Because I've had my own brokerage for 3 years and I'm still growing. I'm still, perfecting my systems. But that is the end goal.
Mm-hmm. And representation matters. So you sticking to it and being successful with it is why I continue to follow you on social media. And then I sit there and I double tap and I'm like, I'm so proud of this man. Look at him.
The crazy thing is the success I've had with limited resources. I always tell people, you're going to know when I'm making big money when I come with a new grill. Like if you see me with an all, you like,
he made it.
That boy get me. That boy get me.
He made it. I appreciate.
But one thing. Lastly, I will say is, in this industry, there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of gain. If you can deal with the pain, and I've had 2 really big deals commission wise not go through this year because of landlord approval. The landlord did not approve the buyer, and most people would have folded if they would have lost the commission that I lost with those 2 deals. But the thing is, I'm in the industry and I know one call can change my life. All I need is that one person to give me an opportunity to give me a call. And that's why I'm still in the industry, because you never know what's possible. And you have to bet on yourself. I'd much rather bet on myself than going to work for someone building up their dream. No, I want to build up my own dream so I could pass something on to my daughter who never wants to be a restaurant broker, but hopefully she changes her mind.
She sees everything that's involved in it, huh? Like, no,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's like, well, you work from home. That's boring. She likes to be out,
Oh, she's still young. Once she gets
Yes.
older, she's going to see that working from home is it's a gift. I know a lot
Exactly.
of us were just so excited about it, me included.
Exactly. And lastly, I do want to end with that, because one thing I did was really smart is when I started my brokerage, I didn't go out and just go get a big office so I can say, hey, look, I made it. No, I started as a home-based business. And then when COVID hit, it made it more acceptable for people to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
But I was already ahead of that trend.
You were
Like,
ready for it.
I'm not going to just go buy this big office so I can stick my chest out and say, hey, I got a big office, I'm successful. No, I started smart and I started small and to grow it to something big. And that's also lastly what I would tell restaurant owners. if you're looking at opening a restaurant, you don't always have to start so big. People assume big is better. It's really not. You can start small, get very good at what you're at, and then grow. So that would just be my last little, advice that I would give to people.
And there you have it, everybody. Last little words from Dominique Maddox, eats broker, Dallas,
But
Texas. He can
every day
sell.
about the sell. That's what EAT stands for.
I
Every
Another play
day
on
about the sell.
words. I love it. I
I'm
love
all
it.
about the eats.
Well, thank you again, Dominique, for joining us today. This was Powerhouse U, and I will see you on another episode. Bye.